All right. So my name is Matt Hayashi. I'm the CEO of Cannabis Clearwater, and I'm happy to have James on. James is Cannabis Clearwater's master cultivator. James Clardy has been growing for 20 plus years, knows every single thing about the industry with respect to cultivation, nursery, and also is an expert in the permitting process and the uh, the different phases on getting a license. So, hi James, good to see you.
How's it going?
Doing good. Thanks for giving us a couple minutes of your time. We appreciate it. Um, so, I wanted to really start off and talk about some of these things that you've seen uh, while you're up and coming. Um, you saw a lot of people who were new to growing cannabis. What's one of the few things that you've seen out there that is not good, or that you look at amateur growers and you say, oh, I don't recommend that. What's one of the few things that you can give advice to beginner growers in this industry?
I would say you want to start out with a good foundation of strains on what you know you want to grow, and you want to keep those strains and sustain those. So I think a lot of people are getting, I mean, nothing wrong with getting clones from other people and stuff like that, but and growing certain things, but you want to be able to sustain what you have all the time, or be able to pick and choose what you want to grow, and pull that arsenal in and out. Where the strain arsenal, what I would say is, oh, look at, you don't have this, or you have this, or not so much is following what everybody else does. I mean, there are lots of great strains out there. You can, and people think they're going to get into the industry and grow. Oh, well, Girl Scout cookie is selling for this so much a pound, or and it's selling for a lot. So they think they're just going to hop on and grow the same thing the next guy's growing, and make the same amount of money. So I think understanding the supply and demand of the strains and the economics on how that works, and what strains grow in certain areas on, and what everybody's gonna have. So I think getting yourself in that niche and having your own brand is one thing that's important. If not, you're just gonna end up being a grape grower, or somebody that's not going to be recognized in the end.
Do As a beginner grower, is it important to just focus on one cultivar and successfully grow that, or is it more important to have a different varieties of cultivars when you're first starting out?
So I would say, there, which each different strain, you're going to have a different um, nutrient scheme. So depending on how many different containers you want, different batches of nutrients you want to mix up, I think that would be a thing to take in consideration. But you at least want to keep yourself up to, at least 3 to 4, depending on how much you're growing. If you're doing outdoor and you're doing a ton or 2 tons, then you're probably going to want to stick between 5 or 6 strains, depending on. And then there's always going to be strains that you're going to get rid of, that are going to fall off and be no good, and you're going to try new ones that are going to be bad, and some are going to be good. So, and that's one thing is, I think a lot of people don't do is, they don't have an area for research and development for when they're going to grow something. So don't dedicate too much space to one strain, thinking that, oh, my buddy grew this, so I'm going to grow it, and it's going to come out the same as he did. So I think that's one and because what works for you might not work for somebody else, you know. So different climates, different strains come from different parts of the world. So depending
Gotcha.
on what your climate is.
Do the Is it, in your opinion, then, that the new growers, the beginner growers, people who are just trying to get into the industry, is it your, kind of your professional opinion to uh, find a seed that you're really familiar with, that that you use like on a recreational business and just kind of go from there? Because you know what it is. At least you kind of know what the turnout is versus growing something that you've never tried. You know what I mean?
You want to know how many grams per square meter you're going to be yielding roughly. So you want to take that from, you already want to know if somebody else is growing this strain, or you get that, how many grams per square meter am I going to be yielding? So that way you could compare it. If I'm yielding low or am I yielding above what I'm not, what I'm, if I'm not getting where I'm supposed to be, then you're doing something wrong, or they're giving you bad genetics. If they're taking a clone from a clone from a clone, you never know what you're getting. That's the hard thing, is getting it from somebody else. As long as it's reputable, you know what you're going to get, you're good. But sometimes those generations can get degenerated, and you'll get something that once was a good you know white widow or whatever, and then now it's a baby little white widow. It's like it was the grande of the solid, now it's little pinky widow. So that's one thing I think to take in consideration. Know how much your strain yields.
How do you know that? How do you validate or how do you verify your source when you're getting seeds? Like, how do you know that you're
So usually, I mean, all these seed growers and seed breeders, they will on there, they will tell you, I mean, how many grams per square meter on there. If not, steer away from the seed breeders that say low yield, medium yield, high yield. They should be, if they're reputable, they should know what they're yielding in it. You know what I mean? Approximately what it should be yielding. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be a guesswork of low, medium yield, low, because everybody's uh, got a different opinion of what low, medium, and high yield is. Is it going to be 800 grams per square meter, 1,000? It's going to be 350, 450. Is that 350 grams per square meter indoor? Is that outdoor? What are you talking about? So that is one that people need to know, because I see a lot of stuff that's going that says 350, 400, and 450 grams per square meter, and they're saying that's high yield, where I see other stuff that's 800, 600 grams per square meter, and it's high yield. So what do you consider high yield?
interesting? It seems like it's. I know it's a lot of work, and this is what you do for a living. That for the person who's just getting into this industry, you've seen the struggles and the just the challenges. What's one of the a good advice that you can give to a person while they are trying to get their cannabis business up and running? What would be?
While they're waiting, or,
Yeah,
or
while they're
while they're
waiting.
waiting for their permit,
Yeah,
be nice to everybody in charge of running the permits, and don't ever complain about how long it's going to take. And then always ask them if there's anything you do to help them to move along things quicker. You know, and
yeah,
if you're having a hard time with the permit coming through, talk to your county supervisor. Talk to a senator. Talk to the governor. Contact the governor. I mean, there's other people you can contact just besides those people at the cannabis control, or the county office. So don't think that you're at the end with those people. So there's always higher up government officials to go speak to. I mean, you might not reach them, but you'll reach one of their officials that will, get you somewhere else. So don't be afraid to do that. That's one thing I would say. You know,
be friendly with everybody.
be friendly. I'll tell you what, nobody likes a mean stoner druggie, because they're all going to think you're a druggie. When you're in the cannabis industry, they're going to assume that 100%. So you have to be nice.
Yeah,
You know, so that's one thing. Be happy when they tell you you got to pay an extra 50,000. Oh, really? And then say, that's it. Great. I mean, that's
right,
all you could do.
right. Yeah, because we come from that end, but we tend to forget that the administration, the clerks that are pushing the papers, we don't think about what their life is like and how their day is going. And
Yeah.
we don't want to, you know, bring them down if they're already in a bad mood.
It usually at the county level, there's only 2 to 3 planners. So if you, I mean, if you make one of them mad, you're done, you know?
Yeah.
So it's hard, you know, and you're going to get some counties that you should research and you're going to find out, oh, I'm not going to get a permit in that county again. You know, you're going to know you're not going to want to play around with those people anymore. So certain counties are nice and certain ones are not nice. So,
Right.
but
Right.
you got to remember, you have to be nice no matter what they are.
And you always want to record the conversation when you're at the county clerk's office or city clerk's office.
I would record every conversation you have with them because you're never going to get the same answer from the same person twice. I mean, or 2 different people. You're not going to get the same answer. It's new to everybody, and they're going to most likely they're going to give you kind of the right answer, you
Right.
know, and then you're going to find out if it's the right answer at the end when you turn in your permit.
Right. It's
And then you're going to have it revised, and you're going to be like, oh, I remember that question. I asked them about it. Look, here it is right here. And now you're going to have to do a revision with your permit. And it's common to do revisions in your permits. Don't expect your permit to go the first time, and it goes through, you know.
I think that's one of the misconceptions is that when people apply for a permit and they give the county their check, I think they think that it's just going to happen and they're done. But what you're saying is they're gonna ask for revisions. They're gonna ask for explanations on certain things. So don't just expect that you're gonna get the permit once you give them the money.
Yeah. I mean,
It's always changing.
you got to remember, you just gave them 500 and something pages of a report, and they got, you know, another 100 of those to do. So they're going to
Yeah,
read through it.
yeah,
So
yeah. Going back to the to growing, does it matter that and I'm sure the professional cultivators and nursery people know this, but are there certain things that you can give advice to beginning growers in the industry, like nutrients or water or anything at that point?
you know, you don't always need a reverse osmosis. You could use the filter if you can get it down to like 150 parts per million, and you get all your contaminants out of there. You know, test your water. That's a good one. So a lot of people are misconceptive with that one. I would say the nutrients. There are lots of different nutrients out there. Everybody's running Athena, so I mean that's the most common one. I mean, so if you try to go outside the box and two, all the just because you're running those couple parts doesn't mean that you got everything in there. You know, your aminos, your catalyst. There's all these extra things, your trace elements that you could put in there that some of these don't have. So a lot of people, you know, keep your soil alive, keep all that stuff going. The live beneficials in your soil, you want that. So I mean, there's certain depending on what route you're going to go. You know, if you're going to go the super chemical route, then you go that route, and it works good. Every you got to decide what you want to which way you want to do, and price out the nutrients on how much it is per gallon, how many milliliters per gallon you're doing. I mean, that is important. People don't realize what they're spending on that. It's and the grow medium. You know, people are buying totes now. You know, they're $450 tote when you can get bulk soil delivered for $100. You know, a yard, and they're buying it for 250, 450, getting it delivered from out in the middle of nowhere on a truck. You know, so there's different ways to get the soil. A lot of people are doing the dirt. I'm a cocoa fan. I'm a cocoa fiber. I die hard. So that that's an you know, it goes all over that way starting. You know, I would say make sure you got good soil. People want to reuse soil. I don't mind. I would reuse soil one time, but I'm not a reuser every time. And if I had a choice, I wouldn't even reuse at all. I would go with new every time. Just
Really?
because just because what's going to happen is the next guy's going to use new and you're not going to be able to compete with them. So, and then you're starting out with used stuff. Used is never as good as new. As much as you want it to be, it can't. So,
Right. And you mentioned cutting costs. What are some of the ways that people can save money or cut costs on certain things? Like,
you
grant.
don't have to use big pots.
Okay.
People want to use big pots. You don't have to use those, you know, or I mean, I do 3 gallon pots in the indoor size in cocoa. Some people use fives. Outdoor, people are using 100-gallon pots. I use 60s, 65s. You know, you could put them closer together and you could still yield about the same. You start them later. If it depends. 100 gallons, you got to put them further apart. You're going to spend a lot of money in your startup if you plan on using 100-gallon pots. You know, you might be better off just doing raised beds. So you're only at 16, 12 inches, you know, and then your plants are going to be smaller, but it's going to be a less startup cost.
Hmm.
You know, and you're still going to yield a lot of marijuana. So it, you know, that is one thing I think people are, if you have the money to do those big ones, that's okay. But I think the bigger ones too, a lot of times you get a lot of small popcorn buds with there. So if you're going for outdoor and refining and going for maximum amount, that's great. So there's good sides and plus sides, you know. But I'll tell
So,
you what, that's a lot of soil, you know, for
yeah.
you know, of a hundred gallon pot, I think we're yielding like a little over what 10 pounds, you know, 9 pounds off one of those. So you got to do the math. Is that worth it? 1,000? What is it? $100 a yard. So 1,000. I mean, 100 gallons is what, 2 yards. So
Right. I think the perception is that people dump a lot of money into the highest quality, whatever that they're going to get, the best, soil, the best of the best. And that is, if you want to go down that route, you can, but ultimately you're going to expect that you're going to lose some money on it because you are spending a lot of money. But here we're trying to save you money. And I know we've seen a lot of people try to go all out, right? But then they don't, they turn out unsuccessful about that stuff.
or in the end, they slowly go broke because they can't afford to
Exactly.
stay in business with the expensive stuff, even though their product is superior and better. The problem is they're being outcut by these other guys, you know, that is similar product that, you know, maybe less, but you know how it is. If they can get it for less, they're always going to say it's better for less, even if it's not, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I hear
it's
you.
it's competitive. So it's really competitive there.
Let's talk about that. So the competition out there is it's fierce out there, right? And as time progresses, the states across the United States, it'll become more legal, more recognized. The stigmas will go away. How does that impact the competition? If you're a beginning grower and are you, how are you intimidated by all of the competitors products that are out there, or do you just focus on your niche? What do you do to battle that mental block? Like, oh, I'm a grower, but there's all these other big growers out there. What's in it for me? How do you fight that, or what do you do?
I think you would have to, just by branding yourself as something different, as something that somebody else doesn't have. Once again, is having those strains, having those strains in your collection, and then along with having your own manufacturing, your certain edible, your certain, you know, things. So when people come to the shelf, they see yours and they go, "Oh, yeah, dude, that's that one right there." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where it sticks out among the others. I mean, I wouldn't try to have, you know, some of these you could have a bunch of different flavors, but if you have the same flavors everybody else does, you know, it's going to be hard. So I think staying in that area of not worrying about what everybody else has, but worrying about what you have and making your brand the best for what you want. And then once again, you do have to go and taste test everybody else's, make sure you're competing in. And you got to remember, there's always going to be somebody that has better stuff than you out there. That's why you strive to be better, right? So,
Right.
and you got to congratulate those people when they have that. Be like, oh, that's great. How do you do it? So I think on that area being um, sustaining your own strains and having new strains, or say like you have one that you haven't had for a while, or keeping it a low supply. You know what I mean? Say you have a strain that you only limited. It's a 12-week sativa, so it takes longer. So it obviously you're not going to have as much of that. It's going to be a lower supply, whereas your 8-week indicas. So I think that would be one thing to put into there is don't be afraid. I mean, don't be afraid to go to some of those 10, 12-week sativas, you know,
Hmm.
because 8 weeks, everybody's doing the 8 weeks. And I'll tell you what, all the people with the 8-week ones are the people that can't control their powder mold and their bugs.
Gotcha.
Because once you get that all under control, then you'll be able to go to 10 to 12 weeks and without fighting the bugs.
Yeah.
So
Is
yeah.
in really fast, is THC still the driven market, right? THC will always be the driving market when it comes to this type of stuff.
Instead of the CBD.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I would think so. I mean,
So
because it contains CBD also, but there are certain plants that do contain more CBD. So
so why would, if THC is the driving market, why would somebody want to grow a plant that doesn't have the highest THC? Is it? I mean, I guess is it just
if it
preference?
does have more CBD, then if they want the less psychotic effects, most likely,
Yeah.
less psychotic effects and more of the CBD body effect.
Right.
So I think that would be what it be. So
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting because I don't know. Like we know that THC is the driving market. So why would anyone want to grow a flower that's not as high? But then again, people prefer not to have those episodes, those psychedelic episodes. They may want something a little bit mellower or something. I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe that's
somewhere in there.
yeah. So, um, anyways, well, thank you so much, James. It was
Yeah,
a pleasure. Really, thank you for giving your time. Maybe we'll do this again. Um, we'll talk about whatever people want to talk about. They could email us or they could um, leave comments, and we're looking to hear from you, and we'll set it up again. We'll set it
yeah.
again.
No, I could do comments all day long, so it's fun. I don't
Yeah.
mind it at all. So
So, anyways,
sounds good.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, take it easy. Have a good one.